First and foremost, I want to read out for you that Secretary Austin spoke with his Polish counterpart this morning to discuss Russia's unprovoked aggression in Ukraine. He thanked Minister Blaszczak for Poland's extraordinary support of U.S. troops in the country, including those who have been recently sent there on temporary orders. He noted the hard work and the diligence with which the Poles have been welcoming and taking care of Ukrainians who continue to flee across their border, some 1.2 million now. The Secretary also made clear how much he's looking forward to attending in person next week's NATO Defense Ministerial in Brussels. Now, the Secretary also had a chance to discuss with Minister Blaszczak the proposal to send MiG-29 fighter aircraft to Ukraine, and specifically the notion of doing so by way of transfer to U.S. custody. Secretary Austin thanked the minister for Poland's willingness to continue to look for ways to assist Ukraine, but he stressed that we do not support the transfer of additional fighter aircraft to the Ukrainian Air Force at this time, and therefore have no desire to see them in our custody either. Let me walk you through the reasons for this. First, we believe the best way to support Ukrainian defense is by providing them the weapons and the systems that they need most to defeat Russian aggression, in particular, anti-armor and air defense. We, along with other nations, continue to send them these weapons, and we know that they are being used with great effect. The slowed Russian advance in the north and the contested airspace over Ukraine is evidence alone of that. Although Russian air capabilities are significant, their effectiveness has been limited due to Ukrainian strategic, operational, and tactical ground-based air defense systems, surface-to-air missiles, and manpads. Secondly, the Ukrainian Air Force currently has several squadrons of fully mission-capable aircraft. We assess that adding aircraft to the Ukrainian inventory is not likely to significantly change the effectiveness of the Ukrainian Air Force relative to Russian capabilities. Therefore, we believe that the gain from transferring those MiG-29's is low. And finally, the intelligence community has assessed that the transfer of MiG-29's to Ukraine may be mistaken as escalatory and could result in a significant Russian reaction that might increase the prospects of a military escalation with NATO. Therefore, we also assess the transfer of the MiG-29's to Ukraine to be high risk. And we are grateful for the superb support and cooperation of our Polish allies who continue to host thousands of our troops and who are welcoming more, as I said, more than 1 million Ukrainian refugees. Polish generosity is clearly on display for the whole world to see. But at this time, we believe the provision of additional fighter aircraft provides little increased capabilities at high risk. We also believe that there are alternative options that are much better suited to support the Ukrainian military in their fight against Russia, and we will continue to pursue those options. Again, we thank Poland for their incredible level of support and cooperation. Poland is a valued ally and a very good friend. We look forward to exploring ways to deepen that partnership in this critical moment. We also know the Ukrainian armed forces, as well as average Ukrainian citizens, are defending their country with great skill and bravery. We will continue to look for ways to help them do that, knowing full well that that effort is in no way made more effective or less harmful to the Ukrainian people by steps we take or decisions we make which lead to an escalation of that conflict. I might add, just before coming out here, the Secretary wrapped up a phone call with the Ukrainian Defense Minister, Minister Reznikov, as one of his ongoing series of calls with counterparts. We'll have a detailed readout of that call later. The call really just concluded, so I don't have much context to provide for you there. Now, on another note, approximately 3,000 U.S. Marines will join some 30,000 military forces from 27 NATO ally and partner nations for the Norwegian-led exercise Cold Response, which kicks off Monday, the 14th of March. This is the 9th iteration of this multi-domain extreme cold weather exercise designed to enhance our collective military capabilities in the demanding Arctic environment. This exercise will emphasize and test critical activities ranging from the reception of reinforcements and interoperable command and control to combined joint operations in a highly intense combat environment. In total, approximately 220 aircraft and more than 50 ships will take part in the exercise. U.S. forces began training in Norway in December as U.S. Marine units conducted cold weather training and planning in the lead up to this exercise. 2 Marine Expeditionary Force will be the largest American military unit participating this year. Some 200 military vehicles, attack and assault support aircraft, and equipment departed Camp Lejeune, North Carolina in January as part of that unit's participation. And again, we look forward to a terrific exercise, cold response, and the exercise will be running through April 1st. And with that, we'll get to questions. Bob.
Thank you, John. With regard to the Polish proposal on the MiG transfers, would it be correct to say that you just closed the door on this transfer, whether it's done through the United States or through any other NATO country? And secondly, separately but related, you referenced alternative options that you're looking at. Can you explain what that is?
Alternative options are working with other allies and partner nations around the world who may have additional air defense capabilities and systems at their disposal, who might be willing to provide them to Ukraine. And so we're having discussions with many countries right now about some of those capabilities, surface-to-air missiles, for instance, that the Ukrainians are more trained and more equipped to operate. It could include additional man-pads as well, and certainly anti-tank, anti-armor, systems. So we're going to continue to talk to the Ukrainians about their needs, and we're going to continue to talk to allies and partners about how to best fill those needs. But it's our assessment right now, for all the reasons that I gave you, that we don't believe additional aircraft is the most effective answer to meeting those needs in the conflict. Now, look, sovereign nations can decide for themselves what they want to do, but this idea, the proposal of transferring these jets to our custody, then transferring to Ukraine, that is something that we are not going to explore right now. Jen.
Are you talking about providing S-300 missile defense systems?
I'd rather stay away from the actual systems themselves, Jen. We're going to continue to look at a broad swath of capabilities that the Ukrainians could use effectively. Some of them they already are, and maybe they need replacements, but I'm not going to get into individual systems.
And what's the difference in providing javelins and stingers to the Ukrainians versus MiGs or fighter jets? Why is that more provocative from an intelligence perspective? Why is that seen as more provocative? It seems like you're splitting hairs there.
No, there's no splitting hairs, Jen. I think we take seriously the intelligence community's assessments and their views based on the information that they have available to them, and it's their assessment, one in which the Secretary concurs that the transfer of combat aircraft right now could be mistaken by Mr. Putin and the Russians as an escalatory step. And as I said at the very end of my opening statement, we need to be careful about every decision we make, that we aren't making the potential for escalation worse. Because that's not only not good for NATO, and it's not only not good for the United States and our national security, should this conflict escalate even further, but it's certainly not going to be good for the Ukrainian people to have what is already a destructive and terrible war get even more destructive and terrible.